も勝つ。何としてでも生きる。
Yo, what's going on, people? It is your boy King Next, back with another video after what's basically been almost a week now with no upload. And you guys already know the details if you've been paying attention to the community tab. So let's just get into the video. Now, when we last left off, it would have basically started off with Irina and Zenobia basically checking out Cool Academy. Basically just trying to figure out what had just happened. On top of that, what ended up happening here now is that Irina and Zenobia would have been bested by Kiba in a fight. And Kiba would have been interested in basically helping the two in their search for Excalibur, basically to find the culprits behind the theft of Excalibur. They would end up taking Kiba with them after they had lost that fight. Issei would order for Akano and Rias to actually keep a close eye on him though. Issei had a bad feeling about the boy, this feeling being that he would pull a fast one on him. It would turn out that Issei was right for not trusting Kiba later on though. Kiba would have actually tried gathering allies in order to dethrone Issei. He would have told Irina and Zenobia his plans in hopes of them joining his cause. He recognized them as strong in their own ways after all. Individually, they weren't nearly as strong as Issei. They didn't really hold a candle to Issei whatsoever on their own merits, well, if they were to fight him individually. But as a group, he had a feeling that they could maybe overwhelm him. They felt that there was a bit of a chance if they fought as a group, as a team you could say. But Rias would actually appear behind Kiba, resting her hand on his shoulder. Once he felt the hand on his shoulder, Kiba's body would immediately stiffen up. He would go cold at the sudden realization. He would slowly turn around to find Rias and Akano smiling at him. He could practically feel the malicious intent behind those smiles though. Rias would apologize to the two girls for snatching up Kiba so soon, but she would explain that they had other business to attend to at the time. Kiba would be brought to Issei. He would have shown a lack of emotion though. He would simply stare down Kiba before a light shot out of Issei's eyes and struck Kiba. Kiba would scream as he could feel his mind being swayed left and right. Eventually, it would end up with a symbol similar to the one Rias got resting on his forehead. From that moment forward, Kiba would have been Issei's perfect soldier. No personality whatsoever. They would follow his orders to a T, and Issei could control the blonde's body from afar, pouring some of his own power into Kiba in case he was ever in a pinch. Issei didn't want to do this to the swordsman, but Issei wouldn't let an act of insubordination slide so easily. Issei would test out this new Kiba's loyalty by sending him back to find Irina and Zenobia. Kiba would continue to assist the girls, but when asking about the creation of an anti-Issei strike force, Kiba would act as if he had no recollection of it. The girls would find this to be pretty odd, but they would focus on their mission at hand more. They would eventually find the culprits behind the theft of Excalibur. Issei would have been watching from Kiba's eyes, and he would notice how skilled these girls were. He had become even more interested in their capabilities now. Although Freed managed to escape, Issei would recognize that it wouldn't be the last time they saw the man. He wanted that maniac killed as soon as possible. To him, Issei just found Freed to be a nuisance, something that would be better off dead than alive. And of course, Issei would also end up finding the broken and battered body of Irina with a note attached to him. Well, attached to her at Issei's doorstep. He would have picked it up, and it would have read that it was basically informing him to actually head over to Kuo Academy's courtyard, unless he wanted the rest of his classmates to end up like this. Basically, all the kids within Kuo Academy could end up just like Irina if Issei were to refuse this match, if he were to refuse to listen to their orders. Issei would be curious to know who was actually strong enough to hurt the girl in such a fashion. He would oblige, although he would be sure to bring his peers with him during this. It could be a good learning experience for all of them after all. At least, that's how Issei viewed everything. Issei would end up meeting the ex-fallen angel leader, Kokobeel, there. He would find out Kokobeel's goal in all of this was to simply start a new war that he found. Well, basically it went a little like this. Kokobeel's goal in all of this was just to start a new war, a whole new faction war, because of the fact that he felt thrill in each and every last one of these wars. Every day you're not knowing whether or not you're going to survive, or if this fight is going to be your last. Kokobeel adored that. He found peace to be boring, in all honesty. Issei wouldn't waste his time trying to fight the lunatic though. Once he heard his reasoning, he would just order Akeno to do that in his place. Akeno would nod before smiling creepily. She would shoot down lightning at Kokobeel and create an ice blizzard around him. She would continue sending more lightning within the blizzard due to ice's conductivity with the electricity. It would continue to shock Kokobeel. Akeno would have also learned some dark magic from Issei and this time living on the streets. So of course she would end up using a spell that created 1,000 needles poking into the fallen angel before releasing a series of carnivorous ants into his bloodstream. Kokobeel would die from the inside out. Issei would whistle before acknowledging that Akeno did some good work against that father boss. Issei would also see Kiba drag the unconscious bodies of Zenobia and Irina. He figured that knocking them out would have been a lot easier now with the reveal of the fact that God was dead and Irina already not being at 100% condition to begin with. Issei would summon 2 pawn pieces, using 1 piece per girl, converting each one of them into devils. Issei would turn to Akeno afterwards. He would inform her of the fact that he wanted her to actually train the girls this time around. Akeno would nod in understanding, but hide an evil smile not even a mother could love. The girls would be scared from the training regime Akano would actually have in mind for them. They were still getting over the fact their lives were a lie up until now, after all. But being pushed into this sort of situation wasn't helping them in the slightest. Issei would watch the display from time to time, and it would amuse him to no end seeing the absolute despair in their eyes. After the betrayal of Kokubio, the three factions would end up finding themselves and some sort of proposition to be made. Basically, they would have found that in order to prevent something like Kokubio from happening again, it would be best to sign a peace treaty with each other. So of course they would host a meeting to do such a thing. Issei would join simply to gauge the strength within the room. He needed to know just how strong these guys were, and just how far he had to go before he could surpass them. The meeting would get interrupted though by a familiar face, Kateria. Seeing her son at the meeting would absolutely enrage the woman. She would roar at her son, calling him a disgrace to the family name. Issei would show no reaction though. Kateria would try to go in for an attack, trying to harm her own son, but Azazel would get in the way. The fight would be turned into one between Kateria and Azazel now. Issei, during all of the commotion, would walk over to Valley Lucifer, who was leaning on the wall, watching the light show between magicians and the three factions alike. Issei would introduce himself to Valley, sensing that the boy was of a similar strength to his own. Valley, finding out that Issei was apparently the son of a descendant to the ancient Satans, would find him to be relatable to an extent. He would introduce himself as well, establishing the fact that he was the White Dragon Emperor. Issei would also hear about how apparently he wasn't the only one with family issues. The boys would bond over the fact that they both had family issues and end up exchanging contacts after everything was over with. Issei would be offered the opportunity to go to the underworld and check out what would be in store for him there by Seraphal afterward as well. Issei would be lying if he said he wasn't interested, if only to see what was all the hype around it by his pathetic mother. Issei would find it to be a rather cool place, but nothing to create a whole war over. He would just rise up in the rankings the traditional way if he really wanted to be at the top. He wanted to be in Sir Zek's position one day after all. He would have some fun in the underworld and learn more about its culture as well. He would be invited to some young devils gathering or something along those lines to celebrate their development and the development of many other young devils alike. He wouldn't really care for the party all that much. As far as he was concerned, he was there just to be there. Issei would notice Konako begin to drift away from the crowd though. She was about to walk through the exit, but he would actually whisper for her to come back to where he was standing though. It would be inaudible for pretty much everyone else, but Konako would be able to pick up on what Issei had said. She would freeze in place before turning back around. She would approach Issei, and he would actually rub her head affectionately. If he happened to be at this party, then so did she. It was as simple as that. Only time she'd get to leave is if she needed to use the bathroom, of course. As far as the rating games went for different peerages, many of the young devils would pale in comparison to Issei's group. Sona would simply forfeit her match against Issei. Sona did not want to fight Issei at all, considering how she was aware of his strength. Theodora, he was more cocky though. He was unaware of Issei's capabilities. As far as he was concerned, he figured he had a good chance against this boy's group. He was wrong. Very, very wrong. You see, what ended up happening is that Issei would pull out a lawn chair and he would just watch as his peerage decimated Theodora's own. At one point, Issei would specifically request for everyone to cease fire except for Irina, Zenobia, and Kiba. He wanted to see the fruits of Akino's training after all, and the two girls, and when it came on to Kiba, he simply gave the command to protect the girls from any sneak attacks. They would embarrass Theodora. The girls feared Akino for how harsh she was with their training, even though it did give results. They feared Issei even more because of the fact Akino listened to him, which meant that he must have been at a whole nother level of terrifying for someone like Akino to submit to him. Theodora's morale would have been completely stolen from him at this point. The girls would corner him and force him to give up. Theodora would lock himself in a room after that match. Issei didn't really care what the kid did so long as he established his dominance in this realm as well. The whole Loki situation would be of no concern to Issei though. He would have been back in the human realm doing 50-pound curls in the school weight room when Seraphal would actually appear with a giant wolf. She would tell Issei about the whole situation with Loki and how they settled it. Once they were done with Loki, she realized that the wolves were still left over. She figured Issei liked animals, so she decided to give him Fenrir. Issei would turn them into his familiar and train them up as well afterwards, after thanking Seraphal for the gift, of course. During one of his training sessions with his new familiar, Issei would end up sensing that there was something wrong. He would look through the eyes of Rias and Kiba to see what the problem was. He would find a black-haired Nakomata wrestling with Konako, confusing Issei. He would teleport to their location in order to stop the fight from escalating. He would break the two apart and knee Kurika in the stomach before dropping her on the floor. Issei would ask Konako for her story, and it would be explained that the black-haired Nekomata was apparently her sister. Issei, hearing this, would figure Kurika also had a lot of potential. He would recruit her as his pet though. Konako was already showing signs of surpassing her sister in terms of strength anyway. Issei wouldn't go into Kyoto with the current setup of his school, and instead Issei would be bored. So bored actually, he would check up on Valley one day for a second, only to find him in Kyoto in his place, destroying everything. He wouldn't be too concerned with the reasoning for why though. In all honesty, Issei was a bit jealous. It seemed like Valley was having the time of his life in Kyoto. But he shrugged. It was Valley's business, not his. Issei would be curious to learn more about his lineage though, and he would question Seraphol about there being any other members of his family, at least, well, more specifically, any family members that weren't crazy, like his mother, of course. He understood that she wasn't a legitimate Leviathan herself, but he figured there was a chance the woman did keep track of some of the devils within the underworld. Sure enough, she would actually lead him to an area where there was a girl in what seemed to be a coma. Seraphol would clear up the details with Issei. It would turn out that this girl was actually a distant cousin to him, and that she fell into a coma after contracting a sickness that was seemingly incurable. Issei would have had access to other forms of magic beyond most devils' comprehension through him being Trigon's son. He would have tapped into the dark arts at this moment before chanting a spell. Minutes later, Ingville would actually awaken, only to be confused as to where she was. Issei would do his best to catch her up to speed about everything. Since they were family, Issei also wanted her as part of his peerage. Any wouldn't accept. Well, she would accept, and she would take around three pieces to be turned into his pawn. Issei would also find out that he would be fighting Rias's cousin soon. Basically, he would find out that he was going to be fighting Rias's cousin soon. Well, according to Seraphol, at least. And of course, this would have been after he added his cousin to his roster. Issei would test out his cousin's strength and would find that she was rather strong for someone coming out of a century-long coma. He would have been expecting for her to be able to only throw weak punches at best. It was amazing that she could even stand to begin with. Issei would hear about her having a sacred gear and group her up with Gasper and Kiba afterward. After all, these were the types of people to really have sacred gears, and it seemed that she had a rather powerful one as well. She was apparently able to control dragons, after all. Issei would do some training to prepare for his upcoming match, but he had yet to face someone that really challenged him that much. He would even get an additional member to his team in the form of Lefay, thanks to Valley's influence. Valley was interested in the Excalibur fragments. Issei was able to spot potential in a person when he saw one. Valley would also offer Issei the True Longinus that was taken from Cao Cao during their fight back at Kyoto. Valley couldn't find a use for it personally since it was designed as a major counter to devils. Valley had a feeling Issei could make use of it though. He would have Arthur throw the spear in Issei's he would have Arthur leave the spear in Issei's possession after Issei gathered the fragments for Valley. Once Valley left with said fragments, Issei would convert Lefay into a second bishop. Afterward, he would focus on converting the True Longinus into an ultimate weapon for devils. He would specifically design it for Irina. It would take a full week or so for Issei to fully convert it and make the weapon safe for devils to wield. It would have taken less time if it weren't for the fact that Issei put in some programs for the True Longinus with his dark arts such as making it to where only he, Irina, and whoever they willed at the time to wield the weapon could actually use it. He would also work on making it more wicked in appearance and nature. Well, it would become more wicked in appearance and nature, with it now being capable of harming the highest of angels and gods. Issei figured there was only befitting of a true Longinus of such magnitude that was now being wielded by devils. Eventually he would be ready for his fight against the head of the Bale family. Although his peerage was able to give Bale's own a run for their money, there were certain fights that went in Bale's favor. Bale would be paired up against Issei, and the two would actually duke it out from there. It would have been the first time Issei felt a punch that actually hurt him in a long time. He would be surprised to find out how strong this dude was. Issei wasn't a slouch by any means, even in terms of physical capabilities, but he never focused solely on his physical strength. He split it with his development of magic. Well, and even then, he seemed to focus more on magic than anything in comparison to the amount of time he spent working out and exercising. This guy seemingly only focused on his physical strength, and he had reached a point where he could surpass that of magic. Issei had to admit he was impressed. He would use his magic in order to give him the advantage in battle, but his opponent would pull out their sacred key of sorts. They were a sentient golden armor that enhanced his strength multiple times over. Issei would be forced to use fortification spells in order to avoid getting knocked out in one hit. Issei would continue casting spells to keep up, and would slowly wither away at the others' defenses. Eventually, Issei would manage to basically Issei would manage to land a strong enough attack to send here to the Bale family crashing to the other side of the arena. Issei wouldn't have been all that better off though. When the smoke cleared, the audience would find both Issei and Cyragorg unconscious. They would have no choice but to call it a tie. When Issei woke up, he would find out what happened to him. Issei had even more drive now. More drive to, of course, become stronger than ever. He had a feeling that even during their match, Cyragorg was holding back the true extent to his power. Issei hadn't pulled out his serpent form in that fight either, but he had a feeling it would have done little good, even if he did. He had a new goal in mind, and that was to surpass Cyragorg in physical strength. Issei would decide to invest in more demanding training regimens from that day forward, after seeing just how strong Cyragorg could get from just pure physical strength alone. Issei wanted to surpass that, and of course, surpass his father's own as well. And that is how we end the video. Oh yeah, and I forgot to see this in the beginning, but shout out to Neptune because of the fact that they are the ones who have actually helped with this project, and they have their own individual project that they're working on as well. I will leave the link to her channel and her project in the description below. on top of my Discord server if you guys want to suggest ideas or just be part of my community there. And yeah, that's basically it. Y'all just remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And it is your boy King Titan X out. Peace.